that was nice. Hi everybody, my name is Jessica Holyfield. I'm a professional dancer, professional dance choreographer, and dance educator based out of the southeast of the United States. We're going to be taking a look at TWS. Oh my, Seven's dance practice. This is the fixed version. They just came out with this, probably less than 24 hours that I'm making this recording. And I always prefer fixed versions because I'm able to really look at the choreography in its full context. And I know they have a moving version, which is for more aesthetic, which is totally fine, to each their own. I think I said this right. I was calling them TWS, but based on the Korean, TWS, so I'm assuming TWS is what their group's going to be called. Here's what I know so far. I think it's a group of 6. Correct me if I'm wrong. I also know that they are the direct Hubei's to 17. What Psychers is to ATs is TWS to 17. So that in affiliation with their labels. That's kind of cool because I've done around 75 analysis of 17 and I've done around 45 of ATs and I've done all of Psychers at this point. So looking here, it is really nice that we get to give some love over to the Gen 5 side of the 17 realm. So I think there's really not much left to do except just to start. Watch, I have not heard the song and I'm coming in pretty blind and this is gonna be cool. Let's watch it. That was nice. I like the motivation they give each other to hit certain parts. That's nice. I like that. That was cool. What's up? To us. Okay, it is to us. It's very much an earworm in this chorus for sure, in the hook. It is looking a lot like we're off on symmetry or how they have these formations set up. It looks like we're either missing somebody or we're not factoring the fact they're an even number. Here's a good example of yes, we're factoring it in, but then now that I said it, look, factoring it all right there. There's a little gap in between on either one side or the other. That's nice. Feels like we have a lot of fullness happening in the upper body. The lower body more complementing it, but the upper body is definitely what's carrying a lot of the energy through the choreo. That was nice. Fun. And they finish. Bless it. that was fun. They did a very, very good job. I know technically, I don't think they're debuted yet, right? I think I did some comment gleaning before just to make sure I'm not going in super, super blind. So I don't think they've technically debuted yet, which is kind of cool. I don't even think there's a music video for this either. I think they did like a visual or something like that. So, cool. I like this. This was nice. It does feel like Gen 5's going the more gregarious route. So more in the happier tones. I've seen that with a couple of them already. I mean, with a couple of them, I'm just seeing more gregarious concepts, like more playful, more like them being teenagers. It gives off that energy a little bit more than them pursuing like really, really more neurotic, more darker concepts than what we normally see. So honestly, I think this was really nice. Very full energy. It does give that puppy rookie energy for sure. Use it while you have it, you know? So we're gonna go ahead and take a look from the tippy top, kind of walk through. First, like my big note in this, when you debut an even number, that's just the biggest surprise to me with the Gen 5 so far, is just the sheer number of even debuts, which is totally fine. I'm just, whenever you deal, I say this every time I look at a group for the first time, when I think about their numbers, this was honestly my biggest qualm with this from a choreography standpoint. I really wish we were more mindful of symmetry when dealing with an even number, because it really felt like it was off balance, obviously, because when you're dealing with a one part feature and they're supposed to be featured and you have everybody surrounding and framing them, it's going to feel like one side is fuller than the other, and there's no grounds to base that on outside of, you know, it's an even number and you had to sacrifice symmetry for the sake of everybody being seen. So that's why a lot of groups probably are debuted with odd numbers like 7 or 5, you know? But of course we have groups like 4 and things like that. But anyway, going from the top of this, I did like it. Very full energy. I really like this beginning where they're kind of swaying over to the side and then having one of them cause the other one to kind of go off of the sways energy. And after they kind of hit, then it prompted the next two to branch off. Then the next two, they come up. He goes, creates an arch. They walk through. Really love that. Good chance there's probably a lot of imagery or Easter egg hunting that's going to be in play with this group. I know we noticed that with 17, and a lot of groups in general tend to cater that way. That's just the ongoing trend, which I think is totally fine. But if we're just looking at it from a choreographic standpoint, those are really nice peel out where you have one person and then you have, based on them taking somebody with them, cause the next group to respond, which caused the next group to respond. It just feels very communal and connected, which is a great way to start your set. This was also a really nice way to start out a frame, having somebody drop down. That was a really cool moment of them using their legs to help create that leverage for them to come up. That was super cool. It goes here, and then they drop down. Then it's very, very full, very sharp, but notice that their staccato is not so sharp that there's no breath behind it. So there's a lot of breath happening, or the dynamics that they're choosing or textures that they're choosing within that movement are making it feel more full outside of just something really sharp in sound. And I like that, where they're hitting it boom, da da da, nice little, what is this? I was gonna say pat pat, that's not a pat pat. It's kind of like you're fanning yourself almost, right? Then taking it boom boom, ding, really nice seeing this energy. Sliding it like a roller coaster. I liked seeing that roller coaster. I think my note I noticed just in this very beginning, of course, yes, we have full energy, but I'm curious to see what they're going to do with this energy and how it matures over time, because that's something you end up seeing with 17. You see that with ATs especially. Just boy groups that have been around for a longer time than just say, I mean, ATs is like 5 years, 6 years now. 17's been around for almost 10 years. And so this is like a huge gap between the two groups of this agency, even though they're both part of Hive now. Just the overall notes of it is that 17's movement was heavily refined, even though they were always known as being in sync. That was another thing. A lot of people were saying that 17 is deemed, you know, the kings of synchronization. This would be deemed the princes. I think honestly what they're wearing is what makes them not look as in sync, but they still look very, very clean. That would just be something interesting to know if you're wondering, like, ooh, that part, I wanted it to look together, but it may not have. It could be sheerly because of the fabric that they're wearing. Sometimes it's that simple. But we're already showing symptoms right here. This is a choreographer thing, or a choreography thing. This is not a dancer thing at all, a performer thing, but already looked. You see we have a feature in the center. Great. But notice we have somebody hanging out over here, but we don't have anybody mirroring on this side. It does feel like this side's naturally more full than on this side. We noticed that about 3 to 4 times. Once, twice, totally fine. You can only do so much, right? In formations, but it really feels like this was like I feel like we sacrificed some integrity to the formation that I feel like we could have done. We could have been a little bit more creative in how we showcased our features outside of just having them in the center and then sacrificing symmetry on the sides. You know, but to each their own. They're there making the choreography. I'm not, so there is something to speak about that. It is nice to have them all frame around for the feature to be angled, but everybody facing towards the inside. Really great way to know who your feature is because they're the only one that's looking to the camera. So that was nice to see. The energy, boom. That appeared to be a peel out. I'm going to assume that it is what it was. Yes, I would say these two went a little too close together. I think it was supposed to peel out from here, then here, then here, then here, then here. But these two went around the same time. Now, it's a really tricky ripple to do, so that was totally fine. Sliding it down, hitting it through. Do you notice with our feature, he didn't quite use his head as full in that section? Makes sense because he is singing. For me, whenever you do unison choreography, I would always suggest, and you do notice it when groups are very proficient at it, they do something different about the choreography to continue to showcase that they are in fact the feature. If you also look here, guess what? We're not symmetrical once again. So that's going to be my big note here on a choreographic standpoint. I'm hoping that we have more creative ways to showcase 6 people outside of just having the 3 and the 2 on the side. But they're doing a really nice job where they're kicking with a nice little pat with the hands going from back to front. Really tricky to hit that progression and still be clean. It really is. They do have a lot of groove choices that are tricky to have everybody on the same page on. Switching place is really nice to have that sense of character. Hi, you know, I really like that. It just says, hey, hi, how are ya? How you doing? It's really nice to see that kind of positive energy exude here. I mean, I am all for all different types of concepts. It is nice to see this here, especially knowing their age. They're definitely on the younger side, probably 18, 19. Like the upper end of teen, love baby adults is what I would call them. That's nice where you have your feature, great example, where you have your feature, he does something modified or different, where everybody else, but the same lower half is what is being presented, but everybody else is doing the typical choreo. Now, here's one reason why I say that a lot of agencies, it makes sense why a lot of them would debut odd numbers, because if you look, one of our members is not being seen at all, right? And that's because we're looking at symmetry with your feature, but that means we have somebody that's no longer there. So you just have to be more creative whenever you have one person that is featured and then you have everybody else that's supposed to be framing, or you're not, and you have them all in one formation. Normally if you have a feature and then you have your group over here, you can kind of do whatever you want with that group of 5, right? But that's just saying, I feel like a broken record, so I'll try not to keep talking about it, but every time we see a non-symmetrical formation, I may have to make a note of it. Just something in the future that I'm hoping we see improvement on. I love that hitting through with a nice little, it's not as sturdy. I did like a whole little deep dive into the realms of the sturdy, so we'll see if that needs to come out today, but I wouldn't call it that. That was just like a nice little, not even a chug, just not even an envelope. It's just like a dip of energy within the leg. As I can't even English today. I'm so sorry. But I do like the pull in right here. This was fun. I love this formation. This is a really nice way to use 6 people, for sure. Spacing just needs to be refined just a little bit. Notice they're a little bit closer than this group here, but they do a pretty good job on this side. I will say these two do a closer job of their leg placement. His is a little bit more wider in range. Could be because of height, but also you do have to make those types of concessions regardless of how long your inseam is in comparison to your torso. Yeah. Ooh, that was actually a very nice situation. That was fun. So we actually had one feature here, then we had somebody else turn, and then we had this group turn. That was fun. And then I'm assuming this group's about to turn as well. Yeah, so they just transition. then here we go. I just think this is, yeah, we're not going to talk about it. You guys know exactly what I'm about to say, so we're going to move on. From here, the circle's really nice. I like that choice with the pull-in. Really fun to see. Now, this right here, I'm assuming this could be a potential Easter egg. This right here, I'm going to assume that's the case because most people would not choreograph this because there's no basis behind it in terms of angles, symmetry, any sort of justification. It could be justification of wordplay, could be, you know, like fixing something. I'm not entirely sure. It's because it stayed there and they didn't fix it. That's why I'm like, this must have some sense of imagery behind it. So you let me know if I'm on the right track there. I like this part. Oh, then you have your group of 3. They've dropped down. Then we have our group of 3 walking through. Nice little hop, super fun to get you into your next transition. That hit, dropping it down, really nice to see. Digging through. So when it comes to the unison choreo, they're doing a fabulous job of staying together in range as well as in timing. There is a difference between the two. When you look at synchronicity, it is so much more than just do they look together. When you look at the actual components of what makes something clean, which is being in sync with someone, you have to think about, okay, is everybody hitting the move the way that it needs to be hit? So that would be looking at texture and dynamic as well as the overall movement itself. Then there's range, and I speak on range more because it is a lot harder to clean because it dives more into your textures and your dynamics and justification. So going from point A to point B within a move, what are you doing? And is the timing together with somebody else who's also going from point A to point B, regardless if it's mirrored or you're doing the same thing or if it's a canon? Those things matter too. So that would just be, that's something that they are doing a pretty good job on. The reason why I kind of have that confidence is because they look clean even with their outfits the way that they are. I've already touched on that. Your garment does play a role in how your content comes across. That's why a lot of groups in a competitive environment will sacrifice looking individualized and look all the same so they can help improve their cleanliness score, their synchronicity score at competition. That's just naturally the case there. But here, you know, they're all in a similar color palette, but they all get to kind of showcase their own personal fashion, which I like because whenever you're looking at a group and of individuals, but also they dance collectively representing a group, it makes sense to really want to go this way. And within the street style context, typically with groups and crews, you would want everybody to have, you know, same color family, but different aesthetics to showcase their individuality. So energy there, like the column, diving it through. Nice spacing, looks a lot nicer there. I would say that's an example of the range needed to be refined. So look between these two guys right here. You're going to notice that their range, the movement started and finished at the same time, but how they got there was a little bit different. So look here. Yeah, that nunte. There's a good chance that could have been on a syllable. We can chalk it up to that. I just find it an interesting move to do a syllable canon on. Okay, well, it's very clear that we're going on the syllables. We'll just chalk it up to that. I just find it interesting that that was the move choice for a ripple like that. But it works. I can see it. It's clear. But that would have been a great example of what I was just talking about with range. We'll find it with something else, I'm sure. But moving through, I like that pull through that caused the transition to take place. That was a nice creative way to do that. That was fun, but here we go. Again, this is a different formation, so I will touch on it. So now we're not having, you know, it's still on the sides, but notice the level representation here. They could have had another member, probably him, possibly be lower as well. So that would have framed it really nice, but it's not symmetrical because you have a space for another human. So their spacing's really good, but that just makes it a little bit harder on them though, if you think about it. Whenever you have a gap missing, because they're not seeing this picture over here, they're just seeing on one side. So it can actually make it not as practical for the other performers when you're trying to maintain a clean formation. So it's nice diving it through. I like this interlock motion right here. That was an example of range. Notice some of them, ooh, they all finish at the same time. I'm gonna have to slow it down because it's subtle, but even the best of the best have to work through it. So that right here, this is my example of range. So they started and stopped at the same time, but if you look, they're technically not interlocked yet, but they are. Do you see what I mean? But you don't recognize, cognitively, you don't recognize that this move is finished until there's a chug that helps create that stamp of we have finished, right? So there's a certain level of familiarity and predictability that can come with a lot of moves, especially if you're somebody that's watched a lot of K-pop or if you've watched a lot of group choreography. When you see chugs or you see a straight line or you see them do a movement that's going to hit on a base, a lot of times our brain is going to assume, okay, they're going to finish this move because they started it while they're revving up the legs, so they're supposed to complement each other. So our brain's going to project that this move's not supposed to finish until this chug is finished, if that makes sense. And that's how we learn, and that's just how we learn as humans. We go off of predictability and familiarity for the sake of us feeling like we have some sense of control in life and in the world, right? It also helps us be able to objectively look at things as good or not good. But that's also a subjective thing in and of itself when you look at what is deemed good, what is deemed not good. It depends on the morality of the individual. Now, from here, this was the exact point of what I was making about range, but I just put it on the wrong section. This is a correct section to put that on. But look, they finished. Boom. Wonderful. Like the other two were great. It's just that setup. When you deal with the rotation, it's a lot harder to get that clean than it is getting A and B clean. You see, picking up what I'm putting down? Look, there we go. But that doesn't discredit the fact that I had to go back and go 0.75 for us to catch it. It shows that they're very, very, very familiar with how to move with each other. And that's a really great thing you want to have for a debut, for sure. Because you can only go up from here. It's kind of the mentality we have on this. Sliding it down. This right here, D-D-D-D-D, tap. That's really fun. We're just not symmetrical. I like it with the reverb, or like when you see the accent, their hair gives it away of how you know whether or not they're all engaging the same way. Everyone's hair responded the same way. And you have this little, you know. You can also tell a lot of them don't have a ton of product in their hair, or that hair wouldn't be moving, you know. Yeah, almost. That's fun. This is just fun. Yeah, it's like head, shoulder, knees, and I think that's another thing that makes it very childlike in like a great way, not in a, childish, overly simple way. No, this is not simple. This definitely has some polyrhythms behind it. It can be very tricky mentally to go from very full with a lot of tension going into something more gimmicky. This does give a more gimmicky focal point, but this definitely gives challenge energy, and I can totally see people doing it. I may even take a stab at it. We'll see. My body is still very, very sore from the last routine that I recently learned. So, and fun fact, that one was also a debut. It'll come out on YouTube eventually, but I like that. Boom, boom, boom. And then we're going into it did feel like we were going into a gangsta walk on there. I don't think we did though. Just we go mo, so they did a double hit there on the head. Looks totally fine. That's nice. So that was a great example of a polyrhythm. If you don't know what polyrhythm is, it's all over street styles. Hip hop in its integrity of sound is polyrhythmic, and so dancers, that's why a lot of times street styles do come across pretty advanced, or it does give that appearance of it's really hard to do because it's polyrhythmic. So what it is it's two or more rhythms that happen at the same time that are different. So this is an example, this would be an example, right? Two or more things happening at the same time. Even if they have the same texture, they're either going on different timings, but they all fall under the tempo, right? Every rhythm that happens on a track, most of the time will fall under a tempo. If it doesn't, then it's like a little anomaly or an exception or this, that, or the other. But typically when it comes to movements, you're going to deal with a lot more polyrhythms, but like they're deceptively polyrhythmic. This is an example of a deceptive polyrhythm because their groove is happening on the 1 and 2 ands, and then they're hitting on the wordplay in the upper body. So that is two different layers represented, all under the tempo, and that's what makes this feel very deceptive. Yeah, dee-dee-ch-dee-dee-dee. So it goes on the crash into maybe the harmonies potentially, but that's a really fun thing to see. If you look here, this is another range thing. Could be because of the focal or the whoever is featured. That individual is probably one who they make just modifications or concessions for the sake of being able to sing, because singability does matter too. I never want to assume that a group is learning choreography and never going to perform live. We're always going to assume that because they're an idol, they're one of their main job tasks is, and their scope is to be able to perform and sing, so that matters. But I am noticing with Gen 5, the choreography is heavily more dense. Like we're talking, this is like dance crew dense, you know, and it's very physically demanding. So it's very impressive whenever we can hear like the MR removed and we hear stability in the vocals, because that's just really hard to do the dances just in general without that proper stamina in place. It's possible, but it takes a hot minute. But this is another example of, notice the range is slightly off. We get to the spot that we need to be on the timing, but how we get there in that swoop or that timeline of your timing could always be refined. It is really, really, really tricky to clean that. And it also depends on how long their rehearsals are for cleaning. Or working on choreo. And it also depends too, do they have somebody that's advising them on cleaning, or are they doing it themselves? Because that's something that you learn over time, and that's how you get groups that get more implicit in their movement quality, is whenever they are more self-sufficient and they have to troubleshoot it and find it for themselves. That was a really cool transition. I like that a lot, because they took it, boom, they slid it in, allowed one of the members to slide in the transition and in the formation, and then they did it on the other side, allowing the other member to slide in. That was a really cool choice. I would love to see more of that kind of stuff, because that's different. It's interesting. It definitely makes us feel, it's fun. Like, that was a really, really fun choice that was made there. Very much enjoyed that. Sliding it down. I love this where they go in, D, 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 D. I think this is more of that key point choreo. I do like it. My note though is I don't know if they're trying to go for a straight angle. If they are, just be mindful of the knuckles, because this can break your line and it doesn't look as clean as a flat line. So I don't know if that's just a choreographic choice or if that was an intentional, they just don't have the wrist flexibility yet to be able to do this angle with this polyrhythm. To each their own, that's fine. That's just something I noticed. Sliding it through, the energy is really nice. That range was really squeaky clean. That's an example of like, whoa, nice. That was really nice to see. Looks like we did just a little bit. Was that like a tone walk twist? Let me look. Possibly more like a lot of just variants of with the step, with the twists of the legs, then bringing it through, up and down, swing it up. This is really, really nice range. Look at this. This is really, really nice. You could tell they cleaned this part. Yes to this. I love this section a lot. Very, very clean. That was a little tone walk twist. Then we go, we hit it, picking it up. Now notice some of them are lifting their legs a little bit more than others, so that would just be something to refine near the tail end of that section. The fact it didn't have to stop very much. Very, very well done on this section, for sure. And I love that kick. It was a really nice moment to showcase your feature. He's the only one with his arm up, maintaining his section as a feature. Then we're building it on, but with a third line, of course. If they had a fourth person, it would make it look significantly more full. Honestly, I would have him scoot over to right here, so you would have this 7, and that would be like a beautifully symmetrical formation. But of course, we want to see their face. I understand it's their debut. We'll let the boys be seen. Sliding it in. Yeah, that right there, I know this has to deal with, oh my 7s. I'm assuming it's in reference to the 7s. Yeah, switching it through, I really like that. Yeah, da-da-da, da-da-da, bleeding it through. I love that kind of resistance happening on that second one. It helps us bleed through into the other side. Great job on dynamics. I think they're doing great on that. Sliding it in. I love that part with holding the 7 out. They're swinging it around. There's a nice little bass that's taking place in that section. Yeah, that boom. And notice that they rode through it and then they accented the lower body. That was a nice choice, having others accent with it. This is a blatant example of why are we in this formation unless they're making the number 7. That would be like my only, because this is not practical. It really truly feels like we're missing someone on this side. So that's just an in general note. Yes, you could potentially chalk it up to preference to a certain degree, but you also have to understand how psychology works and how if you want something to come across clean and in sync, you have to take and factor in the beauty of symmetry. Why do we take geometry? Oh my gosh, I cannot get my G's right. Geometry. We learn about symmetry. We learn about, shapes, polygons. It is something that we can't discredit that. And it's not even them. It's the choreographers who did this. I mean, the choreography looks great. The content looks awesome. Do you want the content to look better? Then make your formation set the content up for success. I think is my in general note about this. And what's so interesting too is for every Gen 5 group, each one struggles with a different chronic thing. And I love that because it shows that each group has something that they focus on, but by focusing on one facet, there's other facets that turn not to weaknesses, but just aren't as refined as your strengths. And so that would be something that's not even their problem. It's just my hope is that in the future, we have more creative ways to showcase your features without sacrificing symmetry, because that's going to lessen the impact of your synchronicity. That's my general point. That, look it up. That's something that just scientifically our brain appreciates symmetry significantly more than whenever it's off. With the exception, of course, if there's wordplay. But I don't know any wordplay right now, and I don't know of any of the Easter eggs and things. My assumption is they're making a number 7. And that's, and that's totally fine. It doesn't discredit the overall looming point of my note. That has nothing to do with them and everything to do with the choreography. I do like that peel down. That was really nice. I love how they took him away. They throw and they throw. So that was a fun little moment. That was a really fun transition. Da 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 da, where he got to sing. But we had that fun little transition getting them into a column or a straight line. I liked that. That was cool. To us, yeah. I'm assuming that was more like their call sign potentially. Dropping it down. Really nice to see this here. Dipping it down, boom, really love that. Pulling of energy, nice. I would say spacing was just a little bit off, but then they fixed it right here. I'm not touching on the symmetry anymore. I think we're about 30 minutes in this analysis now. I think people would start to get upset with me if I keep talking about it. So going from here, the spacing was just slightly off on this right side. Not a huge enough, very minimal, very, very minimal. And it's just hard to do when you deal with certain ranges of moves. It is hard to calibrate that. And on a spacing side, but it is still something you can take a note of. I like that. Bump, bump, nice. Built it up really well. Yep. Now we're back down. Yeah. Oh, mom. Okay. It's really cute. Yeah. It's definitely. It's similar to what we saw in the first course, but I think the formation's a little bit different potentially. Yeah. And I like the rock forward. It really helps us see where they want to showcase a further distance whenever they're bringing it down the legs, and that causes them to have a hinge of the upper body that really helps bring that to life. That's really nice to see. Yeah, that was nice. Very much enjoying this. That part was here. This was actually a very, very clean angle that they gave, so I'm impressed with that for sure. Yeah, it just feels like they bent it here. So I'm going to assume it's like one of those of why they did that, and it's not supposed to be a flat hand. So, and I like that the accent there with the hey. Really nice choice they made there. Sliding it around, kicking it through. Love this. This looks really nice from here. Dropping it down, taking it, sliding it to just some basic range stuff, especially on this side that we're noticing. Da-da-da-da. I like that, riding the groove. It really helped us hear that lyricism there a little bit more. Love that. Da-da-da. Love that. That was a cool moment. And then we get into transition. That was fun. Kick, 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 kick. That was different. I've seen, oh my gosh, I saw that, who was it? I saw it from a group recently. I don't remember who. It is a Gen 5 boy group though. They did a variant like that, but that was part of their focal point choreo, and that's why I picked up on it. I don't know though. We'll see. That's just the overall, that's just the trend that's when we get a little sturdy or a woo walk, or we do something that has a sense of some virality, that had some virality behind it, but notice it was definitely varied more than what you would see from the typical social media trends that come from a move progression like that. So that's why that's going to age a lot better than if they just did the sturdy, so I'm definitely appreciative of that for sure. I love this formation. Very creative choice of a formation. I like it. You got the 2, the 3, and the 1. Looks great. And the breakdown of the track. Really fun, playful. enjoyable. Let's go. I love the let's go. Love it. I know they're tired. They're getting tired, of course, but of course their body is growing in that stamina. If you're noticing though, some of our spacing's a little off over here. It does feel like we have a lot more people. It's not a symmetry thing, don't worry. But just based on how they came out of the formation, just feel like we do have quite an extensive gap back here in comparison to the one over here, as well as, let me see, I think, let's go. I understand. I think he's the one who kicked them out, right? So it makes sense why there's naturally more space between him and everybody else. Totally get that. Okay, it's totally fine. Totally fine. Then we fix it, bring it back in. I like that. Boom, boom. We throw it. Boom, boom. The use of the upper body. I love how they drop down to create a really nice level choice there. And then just refinement of the arms. Some of us were a little bit too straight and some were a little too bent. So just getting that all on the same page right here. Do-do-do, boom. Bringing it over. Doing a pretty good job on that section right there. Sliding it down. Doon, doon, doon. Very nice syncopation too. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Matches the bass really well on this part. Oh, also notice with one of our guys, you notice his elbows. We're actually going to go back so we can see that. You notice with his elbows, his were, ooh, let me see if I can catch it. Yeah, okay. Well, it's not just him. I would say this would just be in general note too. It's another range thing. A lot of them are doing this is fabulous. You see that? These are like freaking twins in terms of their actual elbows. That's really nice to see. But if you also notice, look at this. So these two look really, really similar. These two look really, really similar. And these look really, really similar. But this guy does not look the same as, well, ooh, hold on. 2. Okay. So notice his hand here looks the exact same as his right here. So they're hitting it, but one of the arms is a little bit more towards in front. So this has to do with the angle of the chest. So some of them are hitting with the angle and they're allowing it to have more fullness and they're kind of allowing the arms to stay in their lane. Others are hitting more with the tricep, and so when you hit with the elbow, it's going to feel a little different than if you hit with the tricep. It's a mental note you make with yourself. So if I'm going to hit with the tricep, then it means that my arms are going to be a little bit further back. Whenever I hit with the elbows, it's going to actually think a little bit more out to the outside and make it wider. So there's a good chance for me, I would ask them if I was in the room cleaning this, I would say, okay, are you engaging? I think they're engaging from the tricep. I think they're engaging from the elbow, and that's going to showcase where their energy is coming from too. So that's like a super micro baby note that I normally wouldn't give to a group. Which just shows how freaking clean this is. You know, the fact that we're able to talk about such detail on refinement, because remember, regardless of how clean the group is, there's always going to be room for improvement in synchronicity, regardless of how clean you are. Always. Because remember, they're humans. They're humans, guys. So you're not going to get this crispy, like super refined, perfect synchronicity ever out of any person in the world. You're not going to get it, regardless of how long they've trained, because they are a human at the end of the day, and that is an inappropriate projection to put on somebody. But are they pretty freaking close? They're doing a very, very good job. Definitely above average, teetering on top tier synchronicity here. Very, very nice to see, but they are not perfect, right? Because I've already mentioned it many times. I could freeze this at any point. You could probably find something where they're off on, but it's very, very minor. So you're just looking at how big or how little are the discrepancies in their synchronicity. If you're isolating it to just range, they're doing a lot better than a lot of groups would be, right? But if you're looking at, oh, somebody's doing the wrong arm entirely, or oh, that arm is straight and that arm's bent, those are bigger discrepancies of movement, not just in range. So if you're only factoring half of the synchronicity over both components of it, then you're sitting in above average pocket for sure. So, but to finish this off, really nice to see that boom, boom. I love that rebound that they chose to hit, and they chose that leg to come up and suspend it. Really nice to see that. Sliding it, doon, they look down. I like the head angle there. It really helped us be able to see the angle and appreciate them collectively as a group. Because if one of them was looking at us and everybody else was looking down, we're naturally going to clock them or think that they're the feature for that section. So I'm going to actually see this beginning again. Boom, ding, right here, just with the arms, sliding it down, boom, switch, really nice with the legs, very complementary with the upper body into the lower body. So that was really nice to see here. Oh, we got to go back because my computer loves to go super fast sometimes. Yeah, diving it down. That ding, ding, ding. That, I love that with the sound. Boom, and it goes away as they throw it away. Really great, really nice choreography choice for that. All in all, I really liked this. What a great debut. It truly is. Probably one of the best you could probably have for a group that goes with this concept, for sure. Love it. I hope for a lot of success for them, and I also hope that a lot of people participate in their challenge, because this is probably a that's just very fun. Like, that's just, it's fun, it's tasteful, it definitely is on the more gregarious side, and we always need more happiness in life, right? It's fun, and I do know that they are definitely, they're on the younger side for sure. Groups that debut, they're young people. And what's funny is I think I looked at the birth dates, somebody put it down, like the years. Some of them are around the age of some of the kids that I've already had, like, go through, and I've trained for many years, and they're off in college now. So it's just really interesting to see these groups that are debuting, and I'm looking at them from the analytical lens of dancers that I've trained, but now they're off doing their own thing, not really dancing as much anymore. It's just interesting. It's a fun feeling, because I understand this generation a little bit more because of that on-site kind of generational experience, even though I would consider myself more on that zillennial, very tail end of millennial, very beginning of Gen Z, if that. So this is really fun to see here, and I do wish them a lot of success. This was a freaking great debut. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you want to see more of anything affiliated with Pledis, whether that's 17 or TWS, I will most likely be following TWS since I caught them at debut. I'll probably be taking a look at their dance practices moving forward, just like when I do a marathon of any group, whether it's Gen 3, Gen 4, or even a Gen 5, like with Psychers. I'll be following what Psychers does for their future, because I've already technically caught up with them. So it's really nice to see just the generational differences between what we're seeing from Gen 5 symptom-wise in terms of choreography compared to Gen 2. Because that's more of the wheelhouse that I was a personal fan of when I was in my heyday as a fan. But now, because I'm more taking on the role of a dance analyst, I'm really able to take a look at these. I think there's just more material for me to glean from and to analyze, because whenever you take a look just at how these choreographies are structured, it is interesting whenever we operate with even numbers or we operate with odd numbers, or how the formations can really affect how content comes across, regardless of how clean you are. So that would be my general note that I would give this choreography, like what I had already said throughout the routine. And my apologies if it sounded like I was beating a dead horse. It was bothering me enough for me to say it multiple times. So that's probably what's going to be deemed the chronic thing on a choreographic standpoint, is to figure out more creative ways to showcase your members without having to sacrifice one member by having somebody in front, and also not having to sacrifice symmetry. I think those are two things that we can fight for sure. Especially with them having the resources like Hive, they can definitely figure something out, I'm sure. But does that lessen the integrity or the overall aesthetic of the group? Not at all. Remember, I'm an analyst, but also I'm a human, and I think that they did a freaking great job. And it's really difficult to get to this level of synchronicity, regardless of how long you train. It's just difficult to do that because it requires a lot of grit, a lot of discipline and perseverance, and it does require you to have a lot of communication and understanding of your body and what's going on implicitly as well as explicitly, to be able to understand how to calibrate yourself to work with other people in a group, but also make all of you look like one. That's way easier said than done, and so it's simply a joy, the fact that I could make such a long analysis. It means there's a lot to talk about in a good way. So once again, I am Jess. If you want to see things like this again, like I mentioned, I always post it on Patreon first. This one was early released on Patreon, probably around 24 hours before I uploaded it onto YouTube. So if you're somebody that wants to see me create things in the moment, I'm always posting on Patreon. I do that pretty much daily with the exception of like 1 or 2 days. So if that's something that interests you, you can go check it out over there. If you're okay with just seeing what I come up with on YouTube every day, I'm fine with that as well. If you want to see 17 dance analysis, I've done, like I said, about 75 of them, and most of them are not on YouTube yet. So if that's something you're like, I want to go see what that's all about, it's all on Patreon just for you. So I will catch you guys on the flip side. Bye.